New York Islander fans are fired up after a 4-1 win against the Washington Capitals, a win that included Alex Ovechkin's record-breaking goal against Ilya Sorokin, and this is not the only record being broken recently, with the Bridgeport Islanders also breaking a record of their own, although I don't think they'll be giving any speeches for this one. We're going to break it down on this episode of Islanders Digest, but before we do that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content just like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button. With that, let's get right into this video. And this was a pretty low, well, obviously it was a big game for the Islanders, obviously because of Alex Ovechkin. We'll get that right out of the way. Alex Ovechkin scoring his record-breaking goal, but we're not going to focus too much on Alex Ovechkin here. We're going to focus more on the Islanders. And honestly, other than this goal, this was a kind of slow, low-event hockey game. Yes, Marc Gatcomb scored 2 goals, and I do want to give him some credit. This is his first multi-goal game. He's getting overshadowed here by Alex Ovechkin and all the attention being brought to this game. Definitely the biggest game we've seen for a team that's barely on the fringe of making the playoffs. And yes, you could say the Islanders are still alive. We will talk about the playoff race in the end. It is still looking pretty rough, like we said in previous videos, for the Islanders to make the playoffs. They're going to need a lot of help, and they are basically going to win out. This is the first game towards that goal, and they do have another game against the Capitals. And if the Capitals are going to play like this again, which they probably won't, now that this record is out of the way and they can focus on playing better hockey, I assume they will be playing better down the stretch. But even though the Islanders gave up the goal, and poor Ilya Sorokin is going to have to be living with that, just watching it over and over again for like the next 50 years. The Islanders did get the win, and based on what Islander fans you talk to this about, they're pretty excited about that because that means the season is still alive. As for me, I'm honestly a little disappointed that the Islanders didn't get the loss in this game. Not only did they give up the goal to Alex Ovechkin, but more importantly, they're giving up draft capital at this point. Winning these games, you're going down the rankings, and if the Islanders win a few more games and are not able to make the playoffs, they're really giving up a top 10 or potentially top 7 pick, because at this point it's looking like the Islanders' best case scenario is they draft 9 or 10, and worst case they could be picking as high as 15, and that is definitely not ideal. First, we do want to get into some other things here really quickly. One thing I really liked that Stefan Rosner tweeted was, yes, Alex Ovechkin does have the most goals ever scored by a player, and that is so incredible. But let's not forget the most prolific goal scorer of all times, Mike Bossy. It's a shame he couldn't have been here for this event. I'm sure he would have been there and really made some sort of speech or something for Alex Ovechkin being such an incredible goal scorer. We really miss him here, and I just thought I'd mention that because, yes, Islander fans are going to also get fired up with everyone talking about Alex Ovechkin being the greatest goal scorer of all time. Can't forget Mike Bossy in that conversation. Now, I do also want to talk about some other records that were broken recently, and this one is definitely going to have Islander fans pissed off. The Bridgeport Islanders, according to Patrick Williams, have just broken the record. Well, they're still creating the record, but they're breaking the record for the most losses in an AHL season at home. The Bridgeport Islanders at home this season are 4-25, 1-3. There's a 1-3 there because the way they handled the shootouts and the overtimes, but just 4 wins in all these games is absolutely abysmal. You cannot really even describe how bad this Bridgeport Islanders team is. And it's almost fitting that we're talking about the Bridgeport Islanders in a game where Marc Gatcomb scores 2 goals. Gatcomb, a product of Bridgeport, is really looking like an NHL fourth liner and has been a bright spot, I guess you can say, late on this season. I'm trying not to get too excited about Marc Gatcomb, especially because we've had a couple seasons in recent years where a player has come up from Bridgeport, like a Hudson Fasching, a Kyle McLean, and has had a good season, and then it just kind of fizzled away, and they were just under contract for the next few seasons. That being said, Gatcomb is a different player than those 2 guys, and I do think I'm being a little too harsh on him by not getting excited about him having good goals. And one thing I do have to give credit for to Marc Gatcomb is, on top of scoring a few goals this season on the 4th line, he is playing hockey the right way, and he is also playing real physical. And that is one thing that has bothered me about Fasching and McLean. They're in these lower line minutes and they're just not playing physical enough. So maybe it's unfair of me to be critical of saying that Gatcomb has been a bright spot. This definitely was good in this game to see Marc Gatcomb score 2 goals. And for the rest of the season, I really hope he plays well because he's really earning a spot long term. And he can say for the rest of his life that he was on the score sheet twice in the game that Alex Ovechkin scored the record-breaking goal. In fact, all the Islanders can say, you know what? They got the goal, but we won the game. For those Islander fans, on the other hand, Islander fans like myself who are worried about draft position, this game might cost us. And I say might because a lot of things can still happen. There's still a decent amount of hockey to be played. But I'm going to show right now the current standings. And yeah, our draft position does take a hit right now. Now, what I'm not showing here is Montreal is ahead of us. Montreal now has 85 points, so catching them is going to be really difficult. It's basically going to take not only a perfect schedule, but also for Montreal to really struggle. And the other day, the Islanders were in the 10th spot. Now they are in the 13th spot. So yeah, they have definitely taken... Oh, they're in the 12th spot. I apologize. But they are definitely taking a hit on their draft position. We'll see what Detroit does today. Columbus is currently losing 2-0. But if they lose that game, the Islanders might be falling back on the draft. And again, I've said, and we're going to be doing draft content once we know where the Islanders will be picking. That's why I really have not talked too much about prospects yet, just because, 1 week we can be 7, and I get really excited about this group of guys, and then we move back, and then we have to talk about another list of guys. So once we know where the Islanders are going to be at the end of the season, then I can make a list of some guys that I really hope the Islanders can get and really talk about some of the other players they can reach for, really go in depth, because it's definitely going to be important for the Islanders' futures to have a strong draft, which is why when you hear Islander fans being a little disappointed when the Islanders do win games down the stretch here, that is why, because we want what's best for the team long term, and this is the type of draft where you definitely will still get a really solid player at 12, but it's not a very deep draft. I think there's a lot of talent in the top end of this draft, but you kind of lose the opportunity to maybe get a guy that's falling or like one of these high-level second-tier guys at around 10. Realistically, you want to be around 7 or 8 to really nab one of those guys. There is the third tier of players is also really solid, and that goes from around 8 to around right now, at least from the players I've seen and from what I've read, it seems like until 14, and then there starts to be a drop-off. And after 20, there is a huge drop-off in this draft. So, yeah, the Islanders don't have to worry about going all the way down to 20. The lowest they can go, unless they make the playoffs, is 16. Don't expect them to win that many games, especially considering that the Western Conference is significantly stronger this season. But right now at 12, when they were at 10 the day before, you can enjoy the wins, and that's the tough part because I hate rooting for the Islanders to lose. But that's just kind of the situation where they put themselves in this year. And if they win a couple games earlier on, that game against Vancouver, or they get 2 points in those games where they lost a point against Calgary, this is a real different conversation because then the Islanders have 81 points and they're right in that playoff race. But we'll see what happens. The season is not over, and you know what? If there's a few more games that go by and Montreal starts to slip and all of a sudden the Islanders win 3 games and it's just 4 more games they have to win, I'm sure we will have a much different attitude. At least that's my perspective. Let me know what you think about Alex Ovechkin scoring the goal today and what you think about the Islanders winning. Are you on the fence where you really want the Islanders to be winning games, or do you just want them to tank for the future? I'd love to know your comments below. As always, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm Patrick Nilan. Let's go Islanders.